各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看 JxJ 论坛，由我马健 Jimmy 马，我们的好朋友 Jim Noteware 为我们去讨论这个礼拜的时事。Jim, it's been too long.
Yeah, it's been several weeks. So you're looking good, Jimmy. So hope you're feeling good.
The days are long and the years are short. I can't believe it's the end of the year. It's been crazy. You know, do you remember the school shooting in Michigan a few weeks ago?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, now our local schools in Fort Bend, we're getting notice of kids on social media threatening to kill everybody at school this Friday. So the past few days has been just nuts because the schools, police law enforcement still didn't find who posted it. And whoever posted it named the names of the students in the school. And these are real names. These are people, unique names, you know. So we know it's somebody from the school. And so there's a heavy police presence at school. I mean, what world do we live in when we drop off our children at school and we have to wonder if they're going to make it back out? I hate to say when we were young, but before when we're 12, and this is middle school, by the way, we worry about, I don't know, underage drinking maybe. I mean, we didn't have to worry about going to school and being involved in a mass shooting. So we mentioned this before, gun control, this is fundamentally, is going to lead to our downfall.
Well, as terrible as that shooting in Michigan was, I think there's a silver lining outcome. And that is that the prosecutor, the district attorney, is holding the parents responsible and indicting them.
Long overdue.
For the murder. And really what has to happen is parents have to become much more responsible for raising their kids. And I think one of the reasons for all the things you cited, plus many other social ills that we're all now having to experience, is that many people are simply irresponsible. And many of those people are parents. They think they can just turn the kids over to either school or social media and go on with their lives and neglect. I can tell you for raising 4 kids that it is a major, major commitment. And I know you're raising kids. And the good news and bad news is that when a child is born, it does not come with directions. You have to grow by instinct. And it shows your children in many respects are reflections of your own values and your own priorities. And many people don't really believe that when they're raising children, they're leading by example, whether they want to or not. They are setting example, and children watch that example and want to imitate it. And they also have reactions that are sometimes a little bit unpredictable. A child may observe something and react or behave in a strange way, all of which says that the parents must be there with them, must be there to help provide an environment of security, discipline, and excitement. Because if the kid is bored, they'll go out and try to find excitement some other way. So I could go on and on and on, but
I love it. I mean, we spoke about this before. You ask and discuss and share your knowledge with our audience, with our friends. The audience are our friends, with people that I want people to share that have experience, that you successfully raised 4 children. You're very close to them. You're absolutely right. You have to spend time with them. You cannot just blame the school or depend on anybody else for your own children. I spend a lot of time with them, and I'm very stressed at all times, but that's a normal rite of passage. I know they're only with us till college, at best till high school. So the formative years are so important. Leading by example, talking to them, understanding where they're coming from. We do all of that. We're fortunate that we are open-minded. We don't have a cultural gap. a lot of immigrant parents, it's harder for them as if they're there for a different country. They can't really relate with what's going on. They don't know what, I mean, we know what's going on in school. We grew up through it, we've seen it, whether we participate or not, but we've seen a lot going through the school systems here. So we know what we have to do. But when it comes to school shooting, when it comes to this kind of online threats, we didn't have this kind of social media presence or technology growing up. And we definitely didn't have this gun control issue. I don't think that it matters no matter how much time we spend with our kids, as long as guns are readily available, because there's going to be mentally unstable people or parents. There's going to be a lot of angst amongst teenagers, amongst youth. We've been there when angry at the world or hormones. Before you go out and get drunk or you go, I don't know, swim in the river, something wild. But there was no guns available. Now you can take a gun and shoot everyone. And I mean, it needs to stop. It's very concerning to me. We cannot have corporation or special interest groups like NRA run our nation. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. A lot of countries have outlawed it, and the numbers doesn't lie. I love having weapons. I love my guns, but I'm more than willing to give it up because this is not the same society as when we wrote our Bill of Rights or when we wrote our Constitution. We don't have to defend our states and have militia and fight against the British. We don't have that. We don't need that anymore. This personal freedom does not oversee the safety of our teachers and our children. And I just can't stress enough. This is also why the rest of the world ridicules the last of what's going on here. I know Australia's banned it many years ago. The crime rate dropped, death rate dropped significantly. I mean,
Australia has a very, very different culture than we do. Very different. Yeah, they look up to the United States and they're part of the old British Empire, but they're very, very different in many ways. For instance, they're very hostile to most forms of immigration. Very hostile.
They are. Well, we're talking about gun control, where they're able to set a law and collect, because before private citizens were allowed to own weapons, but they changed it after their mass shooting. I don't know how long ago was it. I mean, there's a lot of countries that decided that this is just not worth it. I don't know why we can't do that. I just don't understand. Either way, that's what this past few weeks has been going, and it's just nonstop. End of the year already. So, but on a good note, on a note that we want to seek your help, your advice, to share your knowledge is, I have been interacting with so many people that are moving to Houston, to Texas, to Austin, from all over the country. A lot of them from California, and a lot of our folks here are interested in real estate, knowing that the market is reaching a bubble status, a lot of fluctuation, and that they understand that. Now, when everybody is in the same space, there's going to be a lot less value. It's harder. In Houston, where we're from, where we're familiar, we already know it's very hard to find lots to build inside the loop, inside the beltway. So what is your advice for somebody? Let's say a lot of our audience wants to get into real estate, whether they're building, what I'm hearing is what people are either building nursing homes, building multifamily units, building government low-income housing, or they're building townhomes, or they're buying apartments refurbished. I think we'll start talking about it as we go on. But let's start with, say, the most basic. Let's say if somebody wants to buy a lot and build a home. What are some of the pitfalls and what you've seen in your 40-year career, successful career, I might add? Where would you start for somebody like that? Because we have so many people that wants to do that.
Well, first, I admire anybody who wants to do that, especially if they've never done it before. And let me mention something. Let me mention a couple of things to you. Number one, thankfully, I've never been through a divorce, and I hope I never do. But I do know many divorce lawyers. And what they tell me, the number one cause of divorce is home construction or home rehabilitation. The process of going through building a home is extremely trying. It's everything from design decisions to budget overruns to scheduling snafus to negotiations and renegotiations with contractors. So there's external difficulties at play, which then transform to internal difficulties because people have to blame someone. I'm not saying it can't be done. My wife and I have renovated two homes, one in Philadelphia and one in Washington, D.C., and we live to tell about it, and we're very happy with the results. But even under those circumstances, it was very trying. One resulted in litigation. It is very difficult to do. So that's the first warning to answer your specific question. I thought it was interesting that you picked the first one. One of the best
Full disclosure, I'm not doing it because I agree with you. I know. My wife, we are not doing any. No, we have enough stress right now. We're not doing it.
You selected the example, but that's okay. I mean, you could.
But thank you. It is. You're right.
But that's what most people want to do. But if I were in that situation, moving here for the first time or moving anywhere strange for the first time, what I would probably want to do is buy or rent a safe, secure environment temporarily. Get to understand the market, not only the lifestyle in the area you want to build in, but also the market, which brings me to the second issue of any kind of real estate investment that I look at, is the old adage, any deal is easier to get into than out of. In other words, if you're going to invest in something, or look at Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, begin with the end in mind. In other words,
strategy has to be there already.
How are you going to get out the other end? Is it a liquid property? What are you going to do to make it worth more when you're done? Or even hold your own the time that you're investing in it. And you said something a moment ago, which a lot of people believe in, that real estate only goes up, up, and up, and up, and up. People have very, very short memories. Admittedly, I've been in the business now almost 50 years, but I have been through 4 major real estate depressions. And you can often see them coming, but even the experts underpredict how severe they can be. And many of them are far worse than people could have anticipated and last longer. When I first started coming to Houston, I lived in New York and Washington at the time in the mid-70s. The mid-70s turned into the early 80s. And by 1982 or 1983, oil had fallen from $30 a barrel to $10 a barrel. And Houston was the epicenter of everything bad in real estate. And that lasted for at least 10 years.
Okay.
And a decade. And there was a very famous bumper sticker that people put on their car. And it said, "Oh Lord, let me have just one more real estate boom. I promise I won't screw it up this time." And guess what? Since I lived in Houston, we moved here in 1993, we have had 2 more real estate booms, followed by 2 more real estate busts. And each time, the bust follows the boom. So the other thing you have to do is to be very prepared for what happens when things go wrong. And you mentioned also that some people that you know are buying shopping centers or buying property and building shopping centers or buying a shopping center. Well, first question is, how are you going to keep it leased? How are you going to keep the cash flow that your investment relies on to keep coming? Buying a single family home that you and your family are going to live in is something quite different than buying a shopping center or a hotel or an apartment building that requires operating expertise. It's like the difference between buying a suit of clothes for yourself that you're going to wear and live in versus buying the store that sold you the clothing. Or it's different than going to buy a restaurant meal versus being in the business of running the restaurant. Those are very, very different enterprises. I'm not saying don't do it. And in many respects, some people, among them Asian people and among them Californians, have done very well over the years in Houston real estate. But I can also show you many examples of people who have lost a great deal. Another adage is, don't invest anything that you're not afraid to lose. If you're investing your savings account for your retirement or your children's education, I'm not saying don't do it, but be extremely careful. And many, many times when I see people making real estate investments, they simply haven't done their homework. And many of them don't know how to do their homework. They're getting into something brand new. And people who move here from California overlook the fact that our markets are very different. Housing in California, particularly those along the coast, those are very tightly supply constrained markets where things are overpriced, and B, only experts develop. It's almost impossible to develop new things along the California coast. Yes, there's some rehabs and some transitions and things like that, but it's not a business for the faint-hearted. It takes huge amounts of capital, so the average person doesn't do it. You come to Houston, it's wide open. We have wide open spaces. We have a great deal of land. And people say, oh, it's cheap. I can sell my house in California for $1 million and I can buy one here that's better for $300,000 or $400,000. Well, that's obviously very true. So I would say count your lucky stars and put the difference in the bank. Find a place that you like, buy it, even if the market's going up. But again, I come back to this boom will not last very long. And I'm already seeing signs that the markets here in Houston are overpriced. Land transactions are slowing down. And the reason is because the people who ostensibly are the buyers, commercial developers like myself, are finally saying the prices are so high and construction costs are so high and interest rates are going up. Okay. And with that, everything is getting more difficult. And I simply cannot afford to buy the land. And very often I'll meet with sellers of the land or their brokers, and they'll tell me what the price is. And I'll say, do you have a gold mine on the land? Do you have an oil well underneath? What makes that land worth so much? And the answer is because the seller thinks he can get it. And many sellers are frankly sitting there. There's a lot of land available in Houston today. And the reason it's not moving is that it's overpriced. But with it comes appreciating homes, value in homes, and appreciating value of most everything else. But not all real estate is going very well. I was contacted last week by the owner of an office building near Intercontinental Airport, who bought the office building full 5 years ago. They're immigrants as well, very wealthy family from Mexico. They bought the office building full 5 years ago, and in the intervening 5 years, guess what? It's emptied out. It is totally empty now, but they borrowed 3/4 of the purchase price. And guess what? The building today on the open market is worth almost nothing. And they have a huge obligation to the bank, which they guaranteed. Okay. Could they have foreseen the deterioration of the office market in Houston? Maybe, maybe not. But to buy it like there was no tomorrow and keep leveraging up the way they did was, in hindsight, very difficult. And they want my help in figuring out what to do. And their preferred solution is to find somebody to buy it from them at more than their note to the bank. And I've just looked at, and I've said to them, why would somebody buy an empty office building? How are they going to fill it up? There's very little market for new office leases, and the cost of putting a new tenant in is going to require a lot of capital as well. The answer is it's just a major loss for them. And I hope they're going to
take the loss and get out.
Well, if they can, but if the bank doesn't want the property. Look, they bought it for $11 or $12 million. They've had a loan on it, which they've paid. It's over $7 million. They think it's worth $9 million. I don't know anybody that will pay them much at all for it, because the cost of fixing it are very hard, and the cost of carrying it are very hard.
There's no tenants, there's no cash flow, so there's no way.
No, there's nothing.
And then you can't even repurpose it to the cost is.
I've tried to figure out how to repurpose it into apartments. And the irony of it is it costs more to fix the interior of the building than it would to have an empty plot of land and build a new structure all alone. And that's just a bushwhack. Okay. So I don't want to put a damper necessarily on all your friends that are enthusiastic about the market here. I'm just saying, be very, very careful. And when you listen to the hype on the television and read it in the newspaper, there's a little truism. It's like looking at a balance sheet or an income statement. All they tell you is the asset side. They don't tell you the liability side. All they tell you is the income side. They don't tell you the expense side. Okay. And let me give you an example in the office market today. You can open up any publication, the Houston Chronicle, the Houston Business Journal, all of the community newspapers, and they'll talk about all the new office buildings that are being built and all the tenants that are signing the new leases in the new office buildings. What they don't tell you is every one of those leases represent a space that tenant left behind in another building that was bigger, and they probably paid a higher rent. So the new tenant is reducing his costs in two ways. One is he's reducing his space, and two is he's reducing the rate that he's paying, and he can do that in a new building. And the old landlord is sitting there now with an empty space, very much like I told you about the other.
I knew this is going on. I know that it's a possibility that the commercial office space will never go back to the same.
Never.
Already seeing on the East and West Coast, with technology, working from home. I mean, so the timing, right? And being, you have to hedge. You have to have a lot of risk management built in. And
right.
No, I love that, because in my line of work, we always talk about the downside,
right.
What happens.
Right. And,
yeah.
Right. And things get obsolete. We change attitudes. I mean, think about a car that was built in 1970. Okay. Even if it's never been driven a mile, okay, let's assume somebody bought a 1970 car and put it in the garage and never drove it. What would that car be worth today? Again, almost nothing, because technically it's dramatically inferior to anything that you would buy today. Will it still run? Yeah, it'll probably still run. Might even run well. But the windows will leak.
Well, vehicles are a depreciating asset. The moment it goes off the lot, you already lose 20, 30%, no matter what car. And the higher end it is, the more luxurious it is, the more you lose. Now, of course, there's outliers. There's going to be those limited edition cars where they didn't make that many, where it's a collector's item. But those, you have to hold on for so long and upkeep and maintenance, and those are very rare. So vehicles are a good example. Real estate, well, commercial real estate is very, very volatile, especially at this top of the cycle. This is what I do know, that we do have a need for single family homes that are under $500,000, or inside the Beltway or around the loop, in the middle of the loop, in some of these areas that are more desirable. Mm-hmm. So now the risk you take in those is your sunk cost, your investment is a lot lower than commercial development, but the risk is still the same, because at any time people could, we know that Houston has a lot of land. You hit a key point, is people could just go out and drive an extra 10 minutes and buy a newer house, bigger house at a much lower price, because they're always going to keep building. But if you want to choose location and inside, there is a limited supply inside the loop or around the Beltway. So yes, you're absolutely right. You have to do your due diligence. And most people don't know how to research and do the due diligence. Most people don't know where to start, because the numbers, everyone says, look at the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. The numbers only matter because the way I put it there for you, the way I present it. If you don't know what the numbers mean, it doesn't mean anything. You can manipulate numbers any way possible.
Right. And some people fall prey to fancy salesmen to show them numbers, etc. That's why I say be careful of only looking at the assets and not the liabilities. Be careful.
Absolutely. Jim, we should have done this long ago, last year in the middle of the pandemic, because a lot of people have already invested or already been stuck, lost the shirt off their back, or did well. Either way, this is something that definitely interests our audience. We have a lot of Asian Americans, a lot of people that are interested or already in the market. So we shall continue this series so we can share your knowledge and educate people. I appreciate you very much. Now, next week, Thursday is
Thursday's Christmas Eve, I think.
Christmas Eve. No, Christmas Eve is Friday. I'm sorry. So we should be okay. But maybe we could discuss maybe a day early.
Is Christmas on Friday or Saturday? Is
Friday.
Saturday?
Christmas Eve is Friday and Christmas is Saturday.
Oh, okay. Then we're okay Thursday night, a week from now. Okay. Then we can wish everybody Merry Christmas. We will. That's what I wanted to say, though. Next week, we'll be able to tell everyone Merry Christmas and do a little end of year review, what we're grateful for, and what we think is coming next year. Yes. Okay. I'll give everybody a hint. Higher interest rates. Absolutely. That's what's also causing the stock market to have a lot of problems. It's fluttering. Oh, yeah. Yeah. We knew this was coming. So, well, Jim, take care and thank you for your time. Okay. I appreciate you. All right, Jimmy. Okay. Until next week. Good luck. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.